We are live.
Sweet. Welcome, everybody. We like to go live a couple minutes early. I don't know, just a slow transition into it. So welcome everybody who's joining us.
It's nice to just kind of, experience the people in the chat. Say hi to Mike. He's got a programming electronics coffee mug. I got a blank one.
Yeah. Welcome, Charles Sushil. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Marcel, Doc. It's so awesome having folks in here. We'd love to hear where you're tuning in from.
Some people were talking about weather. I'm here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it's supposed to be like -1 this weekend.
Is it
that bad in Ohio? Like lately?
No, I don't think so. It's like we're having a pretty mild winter actually. It's like it's like 30, 32 degrees right now.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit, which isn't that bad. I mean, it's freezing, but it's not like,
Yeah.
hello Arduinos. I love that.
That's
Somebody
awesome.
mentioned that.
Sim from
Tipo.
Taiwan, welcome.
Sweet. Yeah.
Virginia and cold. Yeah. Got Charles back. Good to see you.
No, that's cool. Watching from Taiwan. Awesome. Sim's coming in from Taiwan. Sweet. I have no idea what actual time it is, by the way, Josh. So like, I know we're supposed to start at 10:30, but I don't know. I should probably have that on my computer. All right.
I think we got 45 seconds till the real launch.
The real launch. All right.
Switzerland.
Arduino, Ohio. All right. Representing Ohio.
Wait, I don't understand. People are saying like the board that they tend to use most, or
no, I think they're just, exclamation Arduino. I think, well, I don't know. Is that what everybody's saying? We need a program. I think maybe people are just asking questions about stuff, maybe, or they want to Arduino Mega 25. Maybe that would be like, what's your favorite Arduino board to work on? Like, I gotta say, like, mine is by far Arduino Uno.
Yeah.
But there's such a caveat on that. Like, there's so many other boards that I like nowadays that's kind of changing.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, Arduino Uno R3. Yeah. Rev 3, man. The Uno. It's like a classic and it's still super useful. It's like I don't know. It's like a nail, like nails aren't going away. You know what I mean? Like they're just super useful.
I mean, I've literally only ever used the Uno. So
the Uno. All right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Sweet. Hello from Virginia. Hey, Mike, Mark, Nashville, Tennessee. Awesome. Cool. Detroit. All right. 6 inches of snow Wednesday. Oh, man. Arduino Nano Every. I like the Nano, but can only get the Nano. Charles, I'm curious. Are you buying from the Arduino store or not? Because I feel like I was actually just able to buy the classic Nano from the Arduino store the other day. Because I don't know, we did a video on nanos and I wanted to get all of the nanos essentially. So I bought believe it or not, I didn't have an actual nano sitting around that wasn't in use. But
Mike, you said you ordered all those and they all came in.
Yeah, they did. I got all the maker boards, MKR boards. But
oh yeah,
yeah. But well, hey, I guess we're kicking off. It's like 10 o'clock or 10:30-ish. Oh yeah, the email I sent out to say, hey, this is when this is going on. I had the wrong date in there. So maybe people have time traveled because the date was January 6th. Maybe people time traveled into the past.
They're like, either this is like a way in advance thing for next year, or
yeah. They're like, wow, they're really being proactive for January 6th, 2030. Or people time traveled back to January 6th and they're kind of ticked off because they're like, this was supposed to be like, well, actually, we did have a live show on the 6th, so maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of weird.
That's interesting. People seem to be able to interpret that it was today.
Right. No, that's cool. I mean, we're doing a weekly show at 10:30 just to kind of hang out and stuff is the idea. But so if you don't know me, my name is Mike Chach. I'm the owner of Programming Electronics Academy. We are an online education company. And what we're trying to do is help people gain confidence when they're prototyping and building stuff, usually with Arduinos and stuff like that. So I am no software professional developer. I'm like an Arduino enthusiast hardcore. And I am joined today by our video producer, Josh Gilbert. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing great. we were chatting just before this, and what did you say? I have potential.
I didn't mean it like that. The word Josh is like a professional musician, right? Like done the whole touring thing, like many years of his life, and successful musician and band and all that stuff. And so what I was trying to say is like you're into technical stuff, because I feel like music is technical stuff, you know?
Well, actually, especially we played a show 2 weeks ago, and there's a lot of tech and hardware in like the pedal board that you're using, right? Like the different cables you're using, and there's a huge, like a whole world and like a lot of different theories about how to best power your different pedals, and there's like all these different, and I've learned some from the channel, but just like which type of pedals need which type of power, because it's all different, right? They're all vast. So there's some techie, nerdy stuff in there.
And you got to get the gold cables, right? It's all
about
the gold
cable,
right?
Yeah.
Doesn't that, I've heard that's kind of
some people swear by them. I guess I've never done that, but yeah.
Cool. So we still have people tuning in. This is awesome. Welcome, Roger and Will. Welcome, Nara. Hope you're doing well. Hank, welcome from Wisconsin. Awesome. I know Nara's in Singapore.
People from all over. Someone mentioned, just some dude mentioned Chat GPT. I didn't realize it was featured on CBS on Sunday, but he hasn't been able to log in since it was featured.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, let me, I don't know, Chat GPT, I'm guessing since we've talked about it, I feel like every single episode, maybe people tuning in know what we're talking about when we say Chat GPT, but let's just re-say what it is. Okay. So everybody's heard of like artificial intelligence and like deep learning, probably, I'm guessing, right? And Chat GPT is a semi-recent development. I think it dropped in like November, and it was developed by a research group called OpenAI. And I think OpenAI is out in California, and DeepMind, the other big one is DeepMind. They're out in they're in England, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Anyway, so Chat GPT is a conversational AI. It's like so you can like chat with it, right? And it has like this text prompt, and you write in some words. You could ask it a question, you could tell it to do something, blah, blah, blah. And then it like can return a response that is really quite informed. Not like, it's not like always right, but the response is so well created that like, I would say it may be hard to tell if it was a human or not in many cases. You know what I'm saying?
I was going to tell you, Mike, the first time that I've used ChatGPT was yesterday, like for a practical reason. I was working just with a client, and they had this table that was really confusing. It was probably like 180 different like series of data, and I needed to categorize into 2 categories. And so I just spit the entire, like the whole chart at ChatGPT, and I said, hey, can you just tell me what the sum of these 2 categories are? And it was like, yes, it looks like you have, a category for this, and the sum of them together is this. And I was just, it blew me away. I mean, I know we've talked about it a lot, but I used it. It saved me so much time than having to go in and manually like add up all these numbers,
Yeah, I know. And that's where I'm like interested in ChatGPT, is because like I want it to be useful. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to use it in my everyday. I don't want it to be just like some silly, I don't know, thing. And so like I've used it to make charts. Like this is a fun use of ChatGPT is hey, I've got this like just random information. Maybe it's in a transcript, and you could like say, hey, make a chart based on the data in this transcript, and it will like give you columns and rows. And like I told it the other day to, hey, make me make a table, and I said make it in Markdown. And Markdown is a scripting language. Have you heard of that? Or
I haven't. No.
All right. Well, like Markdown is like a way of like using different. It's like a way of like highlighting the text that you write so that it can show up in certain word editors in a certain way, like when it's previewed, like kind of like on the web. I don't know. I'm not explaining it very well, but basically like you would use asterisk, you would surround something by asterisks, and that would tell whatever's going to view the document that whatever's between asterisks is going to be italicized, for example. I don't even know if that's right in Markdown, right? And then like maybe you would use like pound signs. Like if you use a pound sign in front of the word, that means it's going to be a title text. And so when you
So it's
preview the text, so it's a way of like
formatting.
just using some like plain text editor, but you can manually add all of that text stuff without having like a little bar that you highlight and hit bold and highlight and you know what I'm saying?
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So
So
anyway, if you
yeah.
tell if you tell Chat GPT to create a table, it will say, I'm sorry, I can't create tables. But if you tell it to create a table in Markdown, then it like really doesn't give you any trouble. Like it'll be like, oh, sure, I can make a table. And then when it spits out the output, it shows it like really quite nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then you can just copy that and paste it into whatever. So, but here's where I was going with that. Okay. Any dude, who was it? Any random dude had
Somebody.
mentioned he couldn't get into Chat GPT. Well,
Yeah.
this was, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is the
Just
trick.
some dude.
Yeah. Okay. It's just some dude. Here's the trick I've been using. Every time I go to Chat GPT and log in, it says you can't log in because we're too busy. And then all I do is I just refresh my screen like 3 times and then it lets me in. I haven't had any issues lately, but that's the trick I've been kind of like trying to do.
Yeah.
So
Um, the last thing I want to say about that is it seems to be hitting this like pop culture status. Like I've seen like Ryan Reynolds posted a YouTube video all about ChatGPT. Like Jordan Peterson came out with like kind of like a fiery like 30-minute like this is gonna be the end of society kind of stuff. And so it's interesting seeing it hit that like that level of just like cultural, like it's in the zeitgeist or whatever people say. You know, it's
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. It's definitely made a splash. So and this is where, okay, so this is where I'd like to just talk to you,
Cool.
Josh. All right,
Okay,
man.
I'm here.
Okay. ChatGPT is totally cool. I like it. It's interesting. It's doing some stuff, but I want it to be useful. And I want it to be useful with like Arduino. Like I want it to be useful, quote unquote, on the edge. So when I say the edge, do you know what I'm saying?
Nope.
All right. So when you talk about like edge computing, the idea is that like you've got these smaller devices, right? That are maybe like sensors or something like that. And these smaller devices are kind of like at the tip of the spear, right?
Okay.
They're able to do is respond in an intelligent way to inputs, right? Maybe
Yep.
they're not like the actual, like maybe they're like, um, they might be doing a bunch of compute on board, but more likely they're not doing a bunch of compute, but they're still using some smarter, like, algorithm that's running in the back, some bigger model in the back end, right?
Yeah.
Like edge devices would be something like perhaps even a phone, but more generally, I think of like some type of sensor in like some industrial situation or
Okay.
monitoring thing, right? And so, like,
Edge, what is that term edge though? What's like I don't understand what that term is getting at.
well, it's saying like, I don't know. I don't know. I guess you're right. I don't
Is
know why edge seems to be the word they're using. It's almost like an IoT-ish kind of thing.
okay.
Um,
Anyway, you want ChatGPT to have this sort of utility, this edge utility.
yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like, well, okay, what would be a cool way? What would be useful to integrate Chat GPT into an Arduino device? Because what's interesting, and here, if you want to share my screen real quick, let's see here. Okay, so I am on the OpenAI website right here, and I have been playing around with this because I've been fascinated by like, I don't know, like neural network type stuff for a long time. Since I was in college, I've been like fascinated by this stuff. So I'm just like, I don't know, I'm super interested in this stuff. So I've been like checking this out, and basically, what I have found is that it is super easy for a developer to create an account and with OpenAI, right, and to get access to their API. All
Okay.
right, and then all you have to do is make a call to a specific to like a specific endpoint, which is like where you can get your data from, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So you make like, like when you're in your browser and you want to go to some website and you type blah 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 blah,
Yep.
.com, and it goes to that website, right? And then
Great website. Yeah.
you get served up a web page, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like API is like the same thing, right? You're putting in a URL that you're going to go to, but then there's kind of like these parameters that you include in that request
Yeah.
that tell it like, oh, hey, but I have this question and I want this, right? So you're obviously, when you're making an API call, you're not necessarily going into a web browser and doing that, though you could. You're just like doing it in your program.
Okay.
It's making the call, and then you're getting back a response, right? And so that might sound complicated, what I just said. Maybe it
Yeah, a
does,
little.
maybe it doesn't. But it's not hard at all. Like
Okay.
I can do it, and that says a lot. All right. So right now I'm preparing for the time when ChatGPT is available via API, because I found out it's actually not right now. They have
Okay.
several models though that you can query. One is a completion model where you send it some text, and then it predicts what words might be next. So it feels like a lot like a short version of ChatGPT. So like if you said something like, give me 3 names of dogs, or come up with 3 dog names, it will respond with like, Fluffy, Midnight, and I don't know, Axel, right? And
Yep, great names.
right. It'll like respond with those names. But they have an image one, and they have some other ones. But I'm like 90% sure that the ChatGPT API is going to be the exact same way. You just go to a different URL, like a different endpoint, and you make
Okay.
that request. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So all that being said, so here, where I've got a program open up here somewhere. Okay. So here it is. Now, this isn't going to make, like, I'm probably not going to be able to zoom in very well on this, and it doesn't really matter all that much. But okay. So can you see that? All right. So this is an ESP32 that I'm working on. This is an unexpected maker, ESP32. Basically, what I'm interested in though is like the ESP32 part, right? Because okay, and what I'm doing is I'm using it to connect to my local Wi-Fi, and then I'm using it to make a web call to Chat GPT.
Okay.
I'm not actually, no, I misspoke. I'm using it to make a web call to OpenAI, and I'm using it's called completion endpoint, the completion endpoint. And everything I'm saying here is like right on the OpenAI website. I was just going through like some simple examples, and then I just changed it up a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so all the code that I've got on the screen right here,
Mhm.
this is like literally pretty much taken right from the ESP32 example library. Like they give you examples about how to make these HTTP calls.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, and I mean, I have made them before. So, but I guess what I'm saying is like, there's a lot of example code out there on how to make like a GET request or a POST request or something like that. Okay. And so what I have in here is, let's see if we can get this thing working. Okay. So what I'm doing is, I'm making the call, and then I'm saying, answer this question as a pirate. Who goes there? That's the prompt. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah, I do
Okay.
see it.
All right. And then
Sorry, Mike, are you using ChatGPT? Is this eventually going to interact with ChatGPT, or this is completely aside from it right now?
well, it will. I am
Okay.
preparing. I know that they're going to release ChatGPT via API, at least according to their website. I wouldn't be surprised that they're already released it to like bigger like development houses type stuff, and maybe it's just not available yet to like, little old me kind of thing. But
Yep.
I signed up
Like
for the wait
normal
list.
people. Yeah.
But I
Okay.
guess what I'm saying is it's all like the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's going to be so I'm trying to like teach myself this so that when it does drop, like I'm like, okay, cool.
Cool.
All right.
Okay. Sweet.
So, and then down here, basically what I'm getting in the serial responses, I'm getting a response. I don't think I can zoom in on that, unfortunately, but it says, let's see, show your covers, prepare to walk the plank. And yar, it be me, a pirate in the high seas. So basically, yeah. And what I'm excited about is like that, you know what I mean? Like, okay, so now I've got this little ESP32 connecting to the Wi-Fi, and now I have access to this really powerful tool. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do initially was I have this other board right here. I don't know if there we go. Okay. So man, I love this board. Unfortunately, it's completely it's totally a dev board, right? Like I got this from Hack Make Mod.
Okay.
And it's got an ESP32 on here. Let me see if there we go. This is an ESP32. And
Okay.
then it also, but what I love about it, man, holy, I can't like hold that straight at all. It's got this is a rotary encoder. It's got 4 buttons and it's got this
Yeah.
this LCD screen, man. And so
Dang.
it's massive dev, as
I
in
don't.
it's like
What is
totally being developed right now. And so what I wanted to
dev?
do
Okay.
was I wanted to make that call, and then I just wanted to show the response on the LCD screen.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like, I've got the, it's not like that's necessarily difficult.
Yeah.
It's just I couldn't, and I could just hook up an LCD screen to this, but man, this is already integrated. It's like,
Yeah.
so anyway, but if
That.
you've ever used ESP boards before, sometimes depending on the dev board,
Yeah.
they will give you, at least for me, man, I've gotten nightmares trying to upload code to them. Sometimes they're
Okay.
just like drive me nuts. So
You know,
anyway, I will eventually do that. I'll show it on the LCD screen and I'm like, okay, that'll be interesting. And Josh, man, this is a long preamble. I'm like, okay,
waiting for it.
okay. What really does that give me? Like what that's useless.
Wait,
Like,
this whole pirate prompt thing,
yeah,
like
that's
talking to a pirate?
stupid. That's dumb. I mean, it's not dumb. Like, okay, so maybe I could make some trinket that's like, maybe it looks like a pirate box and you press the button and it gives you some response. But like,
I mean, but the pirate is
that provides no utility. So what I want to do is I wanted to brainstorm with you or maybe the people on the chat, like, what would be I don't know. I mean, I've been racking my brain and I'm trying to think like, where do we find the utility in having a chat thing on the edge?
Yeah. On the edge. Okay.
So my daughter, okay, go ahead.
I mean, it's basically, it's like a DIY Alexa, a limited, I mean, it's not Alexa, but like it's something that it's a feedback thing. I mean, I have fun talking to Alexa and getting her to say strange things. So you could, maybe not a pirate, pick something that's like, can you pick a celebrity like Arnold Schwarzenegger? I guess it wouldn't actually say it, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I love man, a couple things here. Antimori Systems brought up something really cool. This sounds kind of fun. And this is where I would like to go with this. So I love that, Josh, I love that you said Alexa, because like, as I was talking to my daughter about this, because I'm trying, like, basically everybody I meet, I'm trying to tell them to give me ideas for, well, how could we use this on the edge?
Yeah.
And my daughter she's like, what are you talking about, Dad? But she was, every time I approach people about it, a lot has to do with the interface. Like, how do I ask it the question? Like, you'd have to have like a keyboard in there to type in the question, right? You know what I mean? You'd have to have a keyboard to type in the question, or you'd have to, you have to have the voice thing, which is where Alexa would come in, right? So then I was kind of researching natural language to text. But where Antimony Systems came in, like, okay, so this would be interesting. What if you get, like, have you seen those cool animatronic faces that like the mouth moves? It looks really real, realish.
It's like,
you get an animatronic face, okay, and then you connect the Arduino to that, and then it's basically, you're like conversing with Chat GPT via this animatronic face. You know what I mean? That would be kind of neat. And then basically the animatronic face you would just move it into a room where it could connect to Wi-Fi. That's all you'd have to do. There'd be nothing else to do other than move it into a space where it can connect to Wi-Fi or, connect an Ethernet cable to it.
Right.
That would be kind of interesting. You know what I mean? And then its face moves and it talks to you as though it was Chat GPT.
Yeah. Alika, I think we talked earlier, Mike, microphone sensor, and then you can have like a voice to text conversation. Right.
Yeah. Voice to text conversion. Yes. Okay. So, and this is what I've been looking into. So I don't know if anybody could school me on this, but as I was on Hackaday. Have you ever heard of Hackaday, Josh?
Nope, I haven't.
Okay. Hackaday is like a popular website for people who make stuff. Kind of neat. Anyway, I was doing some research on text or voice to conversion, and this is where I'm a little confused in my head.
Okay.
I'm wondering, the actual conversion from the voice to the text, would that happen would the algorithm that's doing that be run on the board itself, or would it like literally be recording an MP3, send it to some service, that service decodes it, sends you back the text? Like, is that how it would be done? So my understanding is that there's algorithms that are relatively small. Like they've been doing voice to text for a long time, like even as far as back as like, I don't know, like the 70s from what I gathered.
Okay.
And so I think, but so then I was looking at some of the stuff Arduino's putting out there. They have these boards with integrated microphones. Actually,
Yeah.
the Nanos do. And the Nanos have some that have microphones integrated, and I think the purpose is specifically that, you know what I mean, so that you can like it can listen to you. And but I think I want to say that the networks you train are like they're, well, you know how Alexa has those wake words, you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't know.
All right, so
I'm
the
in the.
word, am I setting your Alexa off right now or no?
No, I'm wearing this, but you did do that
Okay.
earlier this week. That's funny.
So these devices have a wake words or something like that. So so it's trained to know
Oh,
the word
wake.
Alexa really well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think these devices that have the microphones on them, I believe that they are being trained for that kind of purpose. You know what I mean? To like just respond to these specific wake words,
Yeah.
and not necessarily the full like lexicon of speech. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, whenever it's funny, my brother left for college and he left his Alexa plugged in, and so my dad will yell at Alexa to make jokes, and you know the thing where like Alexa's listening all the time, so like technically it can like I don't know what it can like go if you say something, it can like 15 seconds back quote what you said, or you know what I mean, like there's kind of a
Yeah, yeah.
privacy concern a little bit. My dad will just like yell like, "Hey Alexa, play the Beatles," as like a bit when someone, I don't know. That's the wake word, yeah, Alexa, and you can change it, right? Like you can make the wake word whatever.
Yeah,
Isn't
well,
that right?
there's no, well, I think you could probably train a wake word on Alexa. I know that they have some presets. One is computer, which I liked. Me and my wife tried that because we're both Star Trek fans. And so
Computer, yeah.
I love like computer, what, you know,
Yeah.
but you're just so used to Alexa, and then you change it and then your kids get confused and it's like, oh, whatever.
Right.
But
There
yeah.
was I
Oh,
was gonna
but
say
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
there were
John.
a couple other questions that we could touch on it, unless you had other stuff you want to talk about in regards to this.
Yeah, well, you haven't given me any ideas yet, dude. Like,
Oh, for
are you trying to like
oh,
bounce
sorry.
this?
Well,
Like, oh, well, I don't really like. What do
Mike,
you think? I don't know. I
okay,
love the animatronic idea that
this yeah. I don't know
Analytics
if
Systems has. That was awesome.
you saw this. This is like a really practical thing, but like Chat GPT could do a body of research and help in like a legal sense, legal advice without a lawyer. I have no idea how that would work, but there are a lot of things like, okay, how about this? Magic the Gathering. I play Magic the Gathering,
Okay,
and the rule book for Magic the Gathering, I believe if you print it out, it's like 355 pages, just the rules.
dude, that's like a data sheet for a microcontroller.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
which
I mean, yeah, that's approaching that. Yeah, wow.
um yeah, I was anyway, that when I play, we're always like every game there's like a new rule that you're encountering and you have to look it up, and so you really just like search Reddit, or like there's like specific rules that you can find for each card. But basically, now that I think of it, it would be awesome if we could somehow train something like ChatGPT or what you're talking about, um, to have a knowledge of it, and then give like if it could somehow, I don't know how it would do that. That would be so involved. Like, how does this card relate to this card? That's my
I
idea,
don't
Mike.
know,
I don't
man.
know.
Okay, well, so what I'm finding is that what you can do is fine tune the model, and I'm planning on doing a bunch of research on this. Like, of
Yeah.
course, I plan to do a lot of stuff, but you know, they say what good intentions pave the road to hell. Anyway, but
Yeah.
so anyway, I plan to do some more. But you can like fine tune these models, and so
Yeah.
basically, what you can do is um, you can feed it data
Yeah.
and it can learn to modulate its answers with regard to that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. Okay.
so I mean, like, it might be interesting. Like, what if you send it some, I don't know exactly how that fine tuning works yet. I don't know if you need to like actually have a training data set where you would have like questions, responses, you know what I mean? So it has like, okay, well, this is the question, this is the true response, and then it trains on that. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but a lot of research to take a check it out. But
Yeah. I wonder if other people have ideas as far as what you could use that for.
yeah. Well, okay. So the thing is like, so and then this is where I'm kind of racking my brain. All right,
Mhm.
like for that example, totally use a phone. You know what I'm saying? Like phone would totally work
Yeah.
for that. You know what I'm saying? Like it would be like the magic the I don't know, genius magic app, right?
Mhm.
And like I think that can be said for a lot of stuff. A phone could be used. The question is, when does a phone become complete overkill? You know what I'm saying? Because literally an ESP32 is like, you know, like with the dev board, it's like $15 at most, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
And so it's like that's a lot cheaper than a cell phone. And so then I guess the thought becomes like, all right, well, you know, maybe it makes sense then financially to make it just that, you know,
Yeah.
make the hardware for it. But
Well, also just having like something that's independent in a room that you can use as like the face thing that you're talking about, that can just live. You don't have to like get your phone and make sure their phone is charged. Like it's nice having these different things. I don't like that I'm always on my phone. I want to have something outside of my phone that I can interact with, you know?
yeah, no, man, I totally feel you there. Um, so
People
yeah,
are people are making fun of your age and what if I told you I've never seen an episode of Battlestar or of Star Trek? Never.
like any of them.
I know there's like the beep boop beep boop, all those people make those jokes.
Oh, dude. All right. I think we need to end the show right now.
It's
And
got
Josh, you go and watch some Star Trek.
I
Well,
mean,
okay, I'll tell you
yeah.
what. So this is funny. My wife, when did my wife and I get into Star Trek? I don't know, years and years ago. I mean, I watched Next Generation when I was growing up, right? But here's the thing, dude,
I don't
Star
even know
Trek
what that
only
is.
gets better. So
Okay.
like if you haven't watched any Star Trek,
Yeah.
then you should watch oh shoot, man. It's the one where they go into the future and they find 7 of 9. Does anybody in the chat, which one is that? Um
It
Voyager. That's what Star Trek Voyager.
okay.
Oh man, call me
Mike,
crazy, but
Mike, I've
that's
never
just
seen
some
it.
do you like sci-fi or no?
Yeah, I do. Isn't the thing about Star Trek that it's like it's supposed to be reasonable? Like the sci-fi is like the fantasy element is it's like plausible. Isn't that true?
No, no.
It's totally just fake.
Totally
Okay.
BS, man. Everything.
I'm thinking
I
like
mean, maybe
Interstellar or
they made that
something.
claim to fame, but yeah, they do stuff that you're just like, "What?"
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, but no, Voyager, there's my wife tuning in. She's like, "Voyager."
Right.
Yeah. Then the other thing I was gonna say was thanks, honey. The other thing was Deep Space Nine. That's the other good one, man. I don't know.
Okay.
But I love sci-fi. Gosh, I could just go on and on about how much I love sci-fi.
No, we
Uh,
should what would be fun is to watch something like before, like you've seen Interstellar.
oh yeah, gosh, I love that, man.
I
That's
I've
like my favorite movie, man.
dude, we should I've only seen it once. We should watch it and then like talk about it sometime on the
Yeah,
show because it's so good, right?
I've
Yeah.
only seen it once too. I'd totally rewatch it. Um, but um, we were talking about sci-fi. There was somewhere I was going with that. I don't remember.
Voyager, the specific episode.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's some good Star Trek. But oh, you know what it was? So, I don't know, like after you watch Voyager and Deep Space Nine, they have these like nice continuing plot lines, and then you go back to uh Next Gen. All the Next Gen episodes are like 99% of them are like one and done. Like it's an episode and then it's done. And I feel like that's how TV used to be. You
Yeah.
know, like you would
Yep.
have an episode and then like that just episode lives on its own.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
there was really no plot building, you know?
yeah, sitcoms are a lot like that. Like
Yeah, but
yeah.
now I feel like anytime I'm watching a show anymore, it's always like way better than when I remember when I was a kid. I don't watch a lot of TV, but like
Yeah.
when I have watched shows nowadays, I'm like, wow, TV kicks TV's butt from the
Yeah.
90s. Like it's so much better.
Totally.
Like I
I
don't know.
mean, I grew up just on Star Wars. People talk about that show Westworld. I haven't seen it, but I know that's like really sci-fi, like modern show. Anyway,
Okay, no, I haven't seen that either. I don't know. But ooh, ask Chat GPT to give you a plot for Star Trek. I like that. That'd be fun. I did.
it'd probably be great, right? You've
It
been
might.
using it to write stuff, like to tell stories and
Oh
stuff,
well,
right?
okay. So man, I know we're like
We're
talking about a lot
just
about Chat.
hanging out. Yeah.
I know, just talking about ChatGPT a lot, but so I was talking with Steve about ChatGPT. He had mentioned some really interesting things, and then I was listening to this podcast about ChatGPT, and the guy in the podcast was talking about it was a business podcast, and he was talking about how using ChatGPT to write code. And if watching might have heard of GitHub, right? So GitHub is a platform where GitHub is a platform for writing for like code repository, right? So you write code
Yep.
and you can stick it up on GitHub. Well, they've got this thing called Copilot now. I haven't used it personally. I really need to try it. But basically, it's where you can write code and then they have an AI, very much like ChatGPT, that
Yeah.
comes alongside you and will complete your code for you. And I was talking to this guy, or this guy was talking about it. All right. And basically, what he said was that where these AI are excelling is that what's called like boilerplate code. So does that
Okay.
mean anything to you, Josh?
There's
Boilerplate code?
so much in world language I don't. I mean, no.
Okay. So that's fine, man. All right. So like
Boilerplate knowledge.
boilerplate code, and I don't know the history of the term boilerplate.
Yeah.
Um, but it's basically code that like needs to be written, but everybody already kind of like it's already been written, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this just quick Google said the part of the code that has to be repeatedly in use with no or little modification. So it's kind of like the foundation of the code, kind of, or the structure or something.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like maybe like yeah, I would say the foundation or structure. Actually, I think that's not too bad. So like
Okay.
let me give you an example. When you open up an Arduino program, you know how there's two functions in there, setup and loop?
Yep.
Like that code right there I would call that boilerplate.
Because great. I mean, I understand that. Can you get rid of void setup? Is there any way to just bypass setup and just use the loop? You have to use like that's integral to using Arduino.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Like you can't run like in order for an Arduino program to run, you have to have the setup function and you have to have the loop function. If you get rid of setup, you're going to get an error. If you get rid of loop, well, it won't run either.
Oh yeah.
Even if setup's empty and loop is empty, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like
It's a template as
yeah,
well.
yes,
That's
yeah,
good.
that's
Yeah.
a great way. Yeah, absolutely. So basically, what this guy was saying, and this guy who was talking about ChatGPT, he runs a company that is like infrastructure for people building AI applications. So I think he had some like really legit,
Yeah.
knowledge about its use case. And he was saying that where it excels then, where these AI things excel is at this boilerplate code. And so what you're doing then as the programmer is kind of doing the more interesting stuff. Like, okay, hey, it can write void setup and void loop for me, no problem.
Yeah.
Maybe it can write a for loop for me to turn on all these pins and to turn off all these pins.
Yeah.
Like it can do that great. And maybe it can even write like an algorithm for me to like convert hey, write an algorithm that converts Fahrenheit to Celsius, right? Like all of that stuff has already been done about a bazillion times, and it's not, you know what I mean? It's just a matter of writing it out in code, as opposed to say, like, I don't know, you're making something customized to your application. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, this is kind of like where it's going right now, or this is where it's at right now. Maybe that will change in the future and it will be able to do more things, but I don't know. I think it's kind of cool.
I mean, this is just kind of the beginning of. It seems like the world Chat GPT is. I mean, I know there's lots of things I guess similar to it, but I'm excited to see what comes
Yeah.
of it.
All right. But so do you have any ideas yet about what we could use it for?
I mean, the magic thing didn't really
Okay.
work.
Okay. No. I like that. Standalone magic. Ooh, what about something that's like it educate? I can't think of the word I want. Like it would be you have a disagreement, a very mild disagreement, and then you go to it and you're like, all right, well, hey, what you need to decide who's, I don't know, like a
Yeah.
rule disagreement. Hey, who's right? Or
Yeah, actually, I like that. I think like a moderator, an idea I just had is like mantras. I think mantras are really powerful, like positive thinking and like
right, right,
having goals and setting, you could it could be something that like it assists you like mentally, just like remember these things today, or even just like it could be a way to like make lists or something, almost like not touching your phone, but just like speaking to sort of it could be like an assistant, like a mental assistant, like, hey,
right,
reminded me to do this thing, and like when like before I call my mom today, remind me that I love my parents or something. I don't
right,
know,
right,
some
right.
like some tool that helps you throughout the day in like a mantra sense. I don't know.
No, that's cool. I know. All right. Well, I wanted to seed your mind with this. So if you get any ideas, let me know because I
Okay,
am gonna keep messing around with this stuff.
cool.
And all right, maybe we've killed we've talked about it a lot. All right, so I demoed that project. Hey, did we want to talk about that one student project real quick?
Yeah, let's
There
do it.
was a question I wanted to talk about too, but why don't we show off this customer project first?
Okay. Yeah, so this is someone from the academy, named Mark, and Children's Museum exhibit. It's just a member
Yeah,
project.
so Mark Hudson, and this one's a bit old, but I love this one. So you want to make that video big. Mark
Yeah,
Hudson he works at or he did work. He doesn't work there anymore. He was at the um, Colorado Children's Museum of Denver or something like that. Anyway, he was like, making exhibits and stuff like that. And he wanted to like integrate Arduino. And he's actually done a ton of projects there. This was the first one where he kind of like applied his knowledge. And basically what's going on here, I think it's like a firefighter exhibit. And basically you're pointing the hose, and on each one of those panels, that little circle has
it's
I think it was a light dependent resistor, and then
yeah,
what you're shining is a flashlight, and so it's kind of controlling that. But I don't know. Next time, I don't know if you go to museums like children's museums often, probably don't. But if you go to those interactive museums, they've always
yeah,
got they'll have stuff like this, and I almost always seen an Arduino or something like that. Like I'm always kind of trying to look behind the scenes to see what's powering it,
yeah.
and sometimes you can see that.
So just not understanding really at all what's going on. That light that is then hitting that like black section below each of those windows, that's like a light sensor or something that's uh,
Yeah, yeah.
just telling
Okay,
it to turn
so
off, like
all
turn
right,
off the
right.
light.
So basically, okay, so we've got a flashlight, right? So the flashlight, like exactly like you said, you're shining it on this light dependent resistor. And a light dependent resistor, you can kind of think of it like just like a light sensor in one regard, right? But it's like the resistance in the resistor changes based on how much light it is exposed to.
Yeah,
And so like the more light, and gosh, I'm drawing a brain fart here. I think it's like the more light, the resistance decreases. I think I could have that backwards. I'm sure somebody in the chat probably knows that. Yeah, I just can't think. Anyway, so what you do is on your in your program on your Arduino, right? It's monitoring the resistance of the it's monitoring the voltage. So and then it's going to see the voltage change like on the ADC. So like the Arduino has the analog pins.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so you would have that. You'd have like a circuit set up so that resistor comes in there, and then it's gonna modulate the output based on like how that changes. So it's kind of like just looking at that pin, and
Yeah,
it's checking that pin, and it's like, oh, hey, look, there's a change here, and then you set a threshold, and you say if the change is greater than this, then hey, we're gonna do some other stuff. And in this case, it's like I don't know, he's probably got some air blowing up from underneath, and a light, that kind of thing. And so it would turn those off. So
oh, I can just imagine my nephew who's 3 just like loving this. Just this is a blast. Yeah,
yeah, and you know what I like about this is that it's really just a simple concept.
yeah,
Um, you know what I mean? But it's still a lot of fun. It's not like this is some crazy, I don't know.
yeah.
it's a really simple mechanism. You've got an input, a couple inputs,
Yeah.
and you're modulating some outputs. But man, you can do a lot with just that simple thing. And then actually being able to do that and have, you know what I mean? Like know
Right.
how to make that stuff work is pretty fun. So I
Well,
don't know.
there's a ton of cool projects. There's plenty to see. We try to check one out each week that we meet, but it's great to see. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So let's see. There was this one question somebody sent in. And if you're watching, you're always free to submit questions to the forum, programmingelectronics.com/question, or you can just shoot us an email with a question. Any email works. Just, hey, I got a question for the show or whatever, and we'll try to address it. So yeah, we've had a bunch of questions and stuff come in, which has been fun. And one of them was from Gregory Stone, and him and his grandson are actually kind of learning to program Arduino together, which is pretty sweet. That's cool. And they are using old electronics. They're kind of like going through old electronics and stuff like that just to see what's on the boards, probably just for fun and stuff like that. And as they were looking at so think about like just some scrap electronics, right? Like, I don't know, most people have like pulled apart old electronics and looked at a circuit board, and there's all like types of interesting stuff in there.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, we can see if something's a resistor, we can see if something's a capacitor, like the obvious stuff you can kind of pick out, if you're, into electronics and stuff. But some of the integrated circuits, aren't so, it's like, well, how do you figure out what those are?
Okay.
And so basically, and I think it's actually a lot of fun to do that. So what I'll do is and basically he was asking like, hey, is there a good reference guide for all these different ICs and stuff like that? And I feel like the answer generally is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like a yes and a no. I would say yes, as in just like if you Google the IC name.
Yeah.
So what I'll do,
I
for
did
example,
just pull this up here quick
yeah.
just so people can
So
see
what
it.
I'll do is if I got some board and I'm trying to figure out like, ooh, what does this chip on here do? And I think a lot of people do this just because they're kind of curious. Like, let's say you get some Arduino shield, or I don't know, maybe you just break something open and you're just curious, like, what is this chip?
Yeah.
Then what I do is I just grab like a magnifying glass and I try to read what's on the chip as best as I can.
Okay.
And if I can read that, usually it's got or it may or may not have some type of manufacturer marking. And then I'll just like write that down, and then I will Google what that is. And usually that's going to, like, I'm trying to get to a data sheet. If I can get to a data sheet, and a data sheet is like the document that like explains the use and functions of that integrated circuit. So if I can get to a data sheet, then I feel like, cool, all right, I'm on to something,
And it just it seems like that would be super. There would be data sheets for everything, and it would be super easy to find. But that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes you kind of have to guess. You don't really know. Is that
Yeah,
right? There's some
right.
things that just like don't have a simple data sheet that explains it all.
I think what happens a lot is that I think what happens a lot is you could find a data sheet for something, but it's super generic, especially for
Okay.
a lot of parts. Maybe it's so generic that it's not useful. So that will happen.
Okay.
But sometimes like the manufacturer doesn't want you to know the part. And so they have either intentionally obfuscated the cover, like they literally, like when they're getting, and this would be like a real mass market type thing,
Yeah.
perhaps, you just won't even know what like there's nothing printed on it, or it's like, it's not going to lead you anywhere useful.
Sure.
But in lots of cases, you're just, looking at what it is.
Right.
So that's generally what I do. I'll be like, and then sometimes I can get in the right direction, but I think it's almost kind of fun. I'm not any good at this by any stretch, but it's fun to pick up a board and try to guess what the different ICs do based on like the number of pins they have, or, just like its location. I don't know. I think it's kind of fun to like, ooh, what's this? I'm no good at it, but it is a lot of fun to do that, I think. But
Totally. And I've seen you in videos. You'll like, let's say you don't know the voltage of something. You have a way of like testing that. Like you use like some sort of meter to, like, sometimes you have to basically run your own tests to figure out the specs or whatever whatever it's called, right?
yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, ideally, if you've got the data sheet, that's the way to go for
Cool.
sure. But
Awesome.
hey, I did want to say somebody said a great comment in here. It was, I think it was Pipo, and somebody, and Typex both said the same thing. I did this the other day, man. I don't know. I don't know. My eyes can't quite focus. So, zooming in on a phone is even better than a magnifying glass, man. For sure. In fact, it was, I think I was using it on this board because I was trying to figure out something about maybe I can't remember. I was trying to figure out if this was an ESP32 S2 or something like that. Anyway, you get your phone, you
I've never
zoom
thought of
in and
that.
like, yeah,
That's
it's a great tool for that. Um,
wow. Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of the route I'll go. But um, so okay. So we are we're gonna be we have a video that we're releasing here soon. Okay. It's called we're going to premiere this video. We're actually going to do it like right after this. So I'm hoping people join us over there. But Josh, before we do that, I wanted to talk about uh, a question that came up in the last chat,
Okay.
which was finite state machines. All right.
Okay.
So I was like reflecting on what we talked about last week, and I talked to Steve a little bit about it just to get some, thinking through about it. And I think it was Mike Walsh who mentioned it last time. And Mike's a cool guy. He actually, if I'm not mixing him up with somebody else, he actually runs some coin operated laundries. And what's interesting is you find that a lot of equipment that's really good and solid, um, that works really well, right? The operating systems might, like there's the companies that make those things might not continue to support them, and so they deprecate. So
Yeah.
even though the machines deprecate, they're still really good machines. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and what I'm not saying is like everything in the olden days was better, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying though is there are times in companies' life cycles where they make really good equipment, and just because that equipment deprecates technically doesn't mean it's not an extremely useful tool.
Yeah.
And so what I have found just anecdotally over talking to people over a decade now about this stuff is that they might have some equipment that they want to keep in operation, and using an Arduino and like just something like that might allow them to maintain this more. You know what I mean? Like keep
Okay.
going. All right. So okay, so that was a little bit about Mike. So what is a state machine or a finite state machine? Like, okay,
Yeah.
so it's really just kind of like it's like a way of thinking about your program and designing a program. Okay. So and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm no expert on this at all, but I really like to think when I'm writing a program, I like to think about it as a series of states.
Okay.
Okay. And you can apply this in a state machine isn't something that's necessarily programming specific, right? Like businesses have state machines that they like design. It's more of it's like a concept. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's like a concept for organizing and thinking about these, like how a program might run. So a state machine is a system that has a set states. Okay. And a state to go from one state to another state has like to enter a state is like called a transition. So you have known transitions and exits from that state. Okay. And then a state might represent something like, so when I say like, okay, let's take a light switch, for example, right? The
Okay.
state of a light switch could be on or off. So we've got two separate states, right?
Yep.
There could be like a transition time between like on and off, right? Maybe there is a
Yep.
note, you have a state defined for what's between the on and the off, and you could say like that state is transition. And
Yeah.
like the entrance state to the off is kind of like maybe that's like the default start point. Okay. Is like
Okay.
off. Right.
Okay.
And then the exit point would be the condition to exit is when somebody flips the switch up.
Yep.
Okay. And now when the flip switch is in the up position, that is the entrance, that is the transition into the on state.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I'm
that's
with
just
you.
one example where you just have one parameter where it's like the light bulb is either on or off, right? But you could imagine a system where you have lots of states that are specific, or I'm sorry, you have lots of parameters for one state.
Yeah.
Okay, if that kind of
Yep.
makes sense, right?
Yep.
Like, all right. So, and it's really like just it's almost a logical way of thinking about designing a program. Almost every time I start writing a program, I try to think about what are the states
Yep.
that this program is going to be in at different times, and what are the transitions. Now, I was talking to Steve about this. The most common way to represent this state machine like visually is using a diagram. So you have a diagram, and like a circle is a state, and then you have arrows that point going through the states, and they can get quite complicated, right? Um,
Yep.
and like, so yeah, example right here, right? So like you've just got all these different states and these arrows, and the arrows represent the transition criteria. And then the states are like, the different, how the parameters have changed or whatever.
Okay.
Okay. Like one way I approach it and is like, I'll just make a table of the states, right? But I think a diagram's better. I think most people would probably prefer a diagram. So here I diverge from like, probably intelligence, right? Which happens pretty often, but I like
That's
to use a
amazing.
table, and I'll use each row as a different state,
Yeah.
and then I'll use the columns for the parameters, and then I'll have specific columns for like entrance and exit criteria. I think visually it's probably not as good as, having that diagram, but okay. So that's really what a state machine is. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is a finite state machine? A finite state machine is a system that has a limit, like a set number of states, right? Like there's
Mm.
only so many. Okay.
Okay.
So there's only so many of states. Like you might have 8 states, and that's finite, right? Like 8 doesn't go on forever. It's
Yep.
like, okay.
Yep.
So the question then becomes, well, how do you actually implement a state machine? Okay. And so implement has a really special meaning in like programming.
Okay.
Like when I say implement, basically it's like how do you actually do it? You know what I'm saying? Like what is the code you actually write to make it happen? So we've got this idea. How do you actually implement it? And so I feel like implement's a common word. I don't know. For whatever reason, the word implement carries a lot of meaning to me when I'm
Yeah.
thinking about software development. Does it carry a meaning to you in that sense too, or no?
Yeah, I mean, I'm along for the journey that you're painting of learning about finite state machines and all that. I guess implement. I don't know what's an example of a not finite, like a code where is it code where like the conditions could be endless, like 32, like there's a value input, and so because it could
Right.
be,
No, no, no.
I don't understand. Yeah,
No, that's a great question. So, like, okay, well, what state machines aren't finite state machines? You know what? I don't really have an answer for you there. I think that's a great question. That's actually one of the questions I have. Like, I generally think of a state machine as like having a limited number of states, but it's
like
probably just like my lack of exposure.
so like the turn timer, for instance. That's the project that you've
Yes.
developed.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a simple example of different states, right? It's like it's the player's turn, and then if they take long enough, then it changes states and the light changes. Is that a finite
Yes,
state
dude,
machine?
you're
Okay.
spot on. And
Okay.
what's interesting there too is that that program uses a rotary encoder,
Yep.
and the code written for the rotary encoder, that code itself is also a state machine because there's a limited number of states, and it has to do with the position of the rotary encoder as it's changing.
And there's
And
only however many
that's
states
right. Yes.
okay.
And each one of those states has like a transition point, right? So that would be
Yes.
another example of like a small state machine inside of a larger state machine. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So
Yeah.
when I say implementing this, right? What I'm
Yeah.
talking about is like, well, what code do you use to do it? Like, how do you actually do it? Right.
Yep.
And the answer there is like, you could do it any multiple number of ways. There is no like, you know, right or wrong way generally. So but an example of how
Yep.
it might be implemented is just using a switch case statement, right? And
Yep.
so the switch case is like a control flow uh program, right? Oh, go to Chat GPT. I love that. How do you just
I
ask
know.
Chat GPT?
Right.
But a switch case statement is like a structural function in programming. Like just about every programming language has it. Arduino is no exception. C++ that is no exception. And what it allows you to do is based on a particular variable, do a certain thing, right? So you could have a state machine where you've got a switch case and the state variable
Yep.
is the case. And so like, the case, if the case changes, then what happens changes. And then each case will, determine how it enters and exits and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is like with if else chains, like, if this, then that, if this, and that can get a little, in my opinion, unwieldy. There's like total, and not to say your switch case will probably have some if else's inside each case statement. And I know I'm just kind of rambling on here and going into it. So it might be, but basically a switch case is a really reasonable way to do it. Or if it's a small state machine, if else might just be just fine. So anyway,
is you're talking about the word implementation. Is that the meaning that you get from that word? Is it because what programming is taking an idea from your mind, implementing it to the code? So it's like, I don't really know how that relates to the finite state thing, but implement is kind of like the doing. It's like it's actually, I mean, implementing is making your ideas happen. It's the actual thing that does the.
That's absolutely right. But what's interesting, like implement is a really packed word, I feel like, because not only can you say like the verb, like like I'm going to implement it this way or that way, but you can also refer to the implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when you're talking about the implementation, that's how somebody did it. Like, tell me about the implementation of this, right?
Yeah.
And like, how you implement something might follow specific patterns of thinking.
Yeah.
And if it follows common patterns of thinking, then it makes it useful for other programmers. You know what I mean? Like when they're trying to interface with your implementation,
So yeah, I mean, that's cool. There's a way to be like elegant in how you implement, and there's a way to be like really sloppy and not thought out and like, right?
No, I know. Like I live in prototyping land a lot.
Okay.
Where I give myself permission to be super sloppy, but that's not always the best. I try to do, I try to be like, try to make good code, but I also, but you're right, man. That's exactly right. You can do it. Perhaps you can even get carried away with trying to do it too elegant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't in experience, but I can imagine it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, but just
With
anything in
other
general, I
things,
feel like probably in video production, maybe you get a little more elegant than you need to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, perhaps.
That's some good feedback.
So, all right, cool. Well, what do you think, man? Should we jump over to this video premiere?
Yeah, let me.
You want to show it off? So, again, this is a short video. We're talking about the idea, one of the features of the integrated development environment. In this video, I think it's like what, a 4-minute long video or something like that.
Yeah. It's not long.
Josh is going to drop the link into the chat. So if you got time, you got 4 more minutes and you want to watch this video, it's just talking about code folding. So this isn't like mind blown stuff here at all by any stretch. But it's, if you don't know it's there, if you don't know what code folding is or the feature in the IDE, then, it's kind of, I don't know, it's useful. And this was based on, this was based on a question that we got from some folks. So I don't know.
Yeah, you can see we don't normally do premieres, but we figured we'd do it today just because we were hanging out with y'all and also had a video to release. So you can see it just says in like 4, close to 3 minutes, this will launch. And we're going to hop off the stream and watch this together, but we're going to be in the chat, the premiere chat. So I see we got Charles over there already. Feel free to give us real-time feedback on it as we watch it. This is kind of a fun little short video. I got to make some origami. We both actually did. And it's fun to get paid to make origami for work, I was not bummed about that.
Yeah. So I don't know. Would love to hear your thoughts on the video. Again, we're just trying to do our best. And a lot of our videos are inspired by people that are, people just like you have some questions, throwing them at us. And we're just trying to do our best to kind of create some value here. So if you ever have ideas for videos, please just, respond to emails, let us know, give us your thoughts, that kind of thing. It's like really helpful.
So again, you can go to that link at the top. I know it's covered now with my screen, but programmingelectronics.com/question for any questions. I also just want to say that we've been doing this for 6 weeks. It's so fun to see people back in the chat and like kind of just like seeing familiar faces. I'm really having a fun time just hanging out with y'all and getting to learn about things that I really don't know anything about. So I just appreciate all you joining, and it's been fun. I'm glad we're doing this.
Cool. Yeah, no, this is fun. It's great talking to everybody. So it's cool. Awesome. All right. Well, I guess I'm gonna head over. It's gonna start in like a minute here. So
Yeah,
here we go.
That link is in the chat. And,
okay.
we'll see
Yeah.
y'all
Hey,
later.
if you can join us, great. If not, no worries. Totally get it. Again, the link is in the chat. We could probably even post it again. I don't know, just so it's at the bottom. But all right, cool.
Awesome.
All right,
Appreciate y'all.
y'all. Take it easy.